Despite a 5-7 record in 2014, the Michigan Wolverines fielded a pretty solid defense in the Big Ten and three very highly regarded players moving on to the NFL. And we bring in Joshua Henschke of SB Nation's Maize and Brew to break down Michigan's losses, but most importantly, who are those guys that we can expect to see fill in for the impact players this fall for the Maize and Blue. So Josh, will start on offense with Devin Funchess, and it's kind of unfortunate anytime you see a big-time talent. So he kind of had his run at Michigan during a dead time in terms of wins and losses, but he moves on to in the second round to the Carolina Panthers after a very productive 62-catch season. So your thoughts about Funchess and, more importantly, the Michigan wide receiver core and trying to replace an enormous talent?
Yeah, Funchess, I think, he was talented. I mean, he had the talent, but I don't think it necessarily translated to Michigan. That offense was put in a bunch of bad spots, the past 2 or 3 seasons that he's been heavily involved in the offense. I think if you compare Devin Funchess, the tight end, his first season, production-wise, to the junior wide receiver, I mean, there's, a night and day difference between the two. And it's just disappointing because you wish you could have seen more from him. I mean, he shown it a couple of times, but it didn't necessarily come through. And a lot of that has to do with the quarterback play and offensive line as well. But yeah, I mean, I think he'll do well in Carolina. I think he's a nice target for Cam Newton to go with Kelvin Benjamin too. But for as far as replacements go, that's probably one of the biggest question marks on that offense besides a quarterback, probably the biggest. There's not a lot of production behind Funchess. I mean, you've got guys like J.U. Chesson, Darboh. Those are the two main guys I can really think of off the top of my head that could, at least attempt to, have some production. I think those guys, I mean, they've seen experience, they've seen the field, but they haven't really, had much production. I mean, I guess Freddie Canteen is another guy too, but there's on that offense, especially in the wide receiver group. I mean, I'm sure Harbaugh grad transfers, and there might be one that comes in. I don't know personally, but I wouldn't be surprised if they try to bring someone in. But yeah, I mean, this season is going to be interesting how they're going to spread the ball. I mean, I'm sure someone's going to step up. I mean, you've got Brian Cole, true freshman, early enrollee too, really good friends with Alex Malzone. So there's a possibility for him to play, I guess, some slot receiver. And the status of Dennis Norfleet is up in the air, so they don't know if because during he was playing on the defense, and he was playing a lot of slot receiver last year. So the main Jake Butt, the tight end, I don't know where the production is going to come from the passing play right now. I mean, I guess a J.U. Chesson and Amar Darboh are going to be your two outside guys. I mean, that's pretty much it right now. And whether or not they can step up, I mean, Darboh, he's got great athleticism. He can go up and catch some passes. I mean, he had a decent spring game. And he obviously needs to build on that. So I guess if I were to, single out one guy who I guess could fill the void in production, I guess if you want to call it, from Devin Funchess last season, it's
back to the Green Bay Packers in the 4th round. Have liked over the last couple of years. You got to feel good about the career of Jake Ryan, a guy who really laid it out on the smart player, everything you would want in a Michigan football player, and 112 tackles this past season. 14.5 tackles for loss. So your thoughts about Ryan's career, who's going to fill in for this guy?
Yeah, I think that defense is going to miss a guy like Ryan. I mean, he was the leader of that defense. I mean, he was fantastic. I mean, very smart against the run, and he was seemed to always be around the football no matter where it was. You'd always hear him either getting an assisted tackle or a solo tackle, but yeah, he always seemed to find his way around the football, and like a 4-year starter like that, coming right out of a true redshirt freshman year. I mean, he made an immediate impact, and I think you'll always miss a guy like that, but I think with Michigan's defense is set up, I think they've got some depth. I think linebacker is probably one of the deepest positions they have on the defense right now. So Joe Bolden and Ben Gideon probably be the two guys that I see taking over that middle spot. Joe Bolden has seen plenty of the field. Hasn't had a chance to really step up and grasp leadership role, but the way Jim Harbaugh and defensive coordinator DJ Durkin have been talking about Joe Bolton, it looks like he's ready to take on that role, and I think he's going to have a great year. I mean, the way Durkin's defense is set up, I mean, he's going to be around the ball, make some plays too. And Ben Gideon, he's had his moments, hasn't seen the field obviously, because if you're behind a guy like and Joe Bolton, you're probably not going to see the field much. Special teams guy, and then made some decent plays. So I'm excited to see what he can do out there. I think he was like a 4-star recruit. I think he was an Ohio recruit. So yeah, I'm excited there's a chance to be special again this year. I mean, because you've got guys like Desmond Morgan and James Ross III coming back too. So it's going to be an interesting year for that defense.
Specs, Josh, we've got the antithesis of Jake Ryan in terms of memories of a particular career in Frank Clark. Enormous talent. So regardless of the black eye on his career because of the domestic violence situation that cost him the last 2 games of his Michigan career, he goes in the 2nd round to Seattle. So that speaks of his talent. 13.5 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks. So how's it look?
And I think the interior of the defensive line out there. I mean, you've got Willie Henry, Mo Hurst, Brian Monet. You've got some big bodies there. But the outsides. I mean, you're losing both Brendan Byer and Frank Clark. So I mean, there's 2 holes you have to plug on the outside. And as far like the main guy that I can think of that could replace Frank Clark and has seen the field is probably Mario Ojemudia. I wouldn't say really he grasped the role once Frank Clark was gone, was dismissed from the program, but I mean, I think he has the opportunity to start out there week 1. I mean, he was injured during the spring, so didn't get much time, but I'm familiar with that defense, and now working with the defensive line, I mean, there's going to be plenty of rotation. So even like a rotation like maybe a Chris Wormley and a Mario Ojemudia, I think that's a good combination to have. And he's had a great spring. A lot of coaches have been talking very highly of him. So one of those guys bound defense has been missing for a while is a decent defensive line. I mean, I wouldn't go as far as saying dominant, but they've needed someone to step up. And I think this is a good year as any, because this is probably the deepest this defense is going to be probably for a while now, because they'll need to replace some key guys after this season, and it'll be interesting to see where they go from here.
Joshua, our main Michigan football contact from SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Josh, we always appreciate the personnel breakdown.
Not a problem. Anytime.